Jimmy Dunne resigned from the board. Jimmy Dunne he's kind of like a golf insider, I guess is the way that I would phrase it, right? Very well known, very well liked financier. I believe he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink at Seminole. And so he, and I think it was Dan Rappaport that put out his resignation letter, that he was resigning immediately from the board. And that's a quote, resigning effective immediately, end quote, from the board. And what was interesting about it was, he was one of the people that was initially dispatched to do the tour's bidding to Public Investment Fund. And then he was asked to address, I think, that Senate committee, if memory serves me. Right? Got a lot of heat for all that, blah, blah, blah. So he resigns, and, you can resign from anything that you want. But he resigned, and he wrote a letter, which generally, if you're gonna quit anything, if you're gonna quit where you work or whatever, and you go out the door with the attitude of, you guys don't know how much you'll miss me until I'm gone. But if you write a letter, to me, that means you've got some stuff simmering, and that's really kind of the sting of the tail, right? And he wrote, as part of his resignation letter, quoting again, since the players now outnumber the independent directors on the board and no meaningful progress has been made towards a transaction with the PIF, I feel like my vote and my role is superfluous. At close quote. I'm getting these quotes from an article written by Rex Hoggart at NBCSports.com/golf. Right, that's a pretty good shot right there. Where he's saying, again, I'm trying to interpret the words, and I believe the message is, look, I did what I was supposed to. I got this whole conversation started here, and nothing's happened. It's stalled. And the significance of what I'm telling you right now is that here we had Peter Malnati on just a couple days ago, and Peter was like, yeah, we don't know what the future of the game is going to be. Okay? Then we have a guy that's on the board that's like, no meaningful progress has been made towards a transaction with the PIF. That's a direct quote. That's not an interpretation. That's exactly what he wrote. The guy on the inside. No meaningful progress has been made towards transaction. And so I started doing a lot of research and getting a lot of opinions and trying to get inside information from different people. And it seems as though there was a faction, a mentality that said, well, wait a minute. If you're talking about getting money from PIF, why don't we look at other potential sources of bringing in investment dollars? And they did. $1.5 million from the SSG. And as they keep saying, it's always followed by $1.5 billion. It's always followed by the caveat that says, and upwards to $3 billion. Don't know exactly what that means. And when we're talking about finances at this level, it's always somehow split between what we do know and what we don't know, what we're supposed to know, what we were not supposed to know. Like this letter from Jimmy Dunne, I don't know if it was supposed to be out there publicly. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I know where, from a media standpoint, it appeared. So when he's talking about the players on the board and that the players had the majority, Tiger Woods, Patrick Cantlay, Peter Malnati, Adam Scott, Jordan Spieth, and Webb Simpson, as well as what they call the liaison director in Joe Ogilvy, and then 6 independent directors. Dunn went on to say, quote, unifying professional golf is paramount to restoring fan interest in repairing wounds left from a fractured game. I've tried my best to move all minds in that direction, close quote. Okay, so if you've tried your best to move all those minds in that direction, and in so doing, apparently did not succeed or not to your satisfaction such that you've decided to leave, it suggests that there are mindsets by majority, interpreting, that want to go in another direction. So again, everything that I'm seeing, some of it claims to be inside information, some of it claims to be or purports to be based upon a preponderance of evidence, which is to say that it seems like Tiger is one of the reasons that they're not moving quickly to a deal with PIF. It seems like Rory has suggested multiple times in multiple ways, though diplomatically, that there's a different mentality where it's the one that he's promoting. Again, we're reading clouds here, but we're trying to put the pieces together. He wants to see more of a global basis to the game of golf. Okay, well, what then could this, if there is another side that Jimmy's alluding to, that Rory's talking about, what would that other side be? What would they represent? Would it then represent a U.S.-centric combined tour, assuming that they want to do a deal, which is a huge assumption, but would it be a U.S.-centric? Okay, well, from that standpoint, how isn't it going to be U.S.-centric anyway? Whereas now you could look at it and go, yeah, but it's 95% U.S.-centric. Okay, so maybe it's not 95%, maybe it's 75%, or maybe it's gradual in scale. What I'm saying is I don't understand what's so fearful about the idea of a tour that's looked upon more as a world tour. And there's people that use that and go, oh, wait a minute. What about when they try to do the World Golf Championships and, they're gone. They're not gone because they succeeded, that they were something that everybody was vested in when they tried to do it on a world basis. Okay, you got to pick your spots. I mean, right now we're seeing Australia's going crazy, and the Australian Open hasn't gotten the respect that it's deserved in years. There was a time that was looked upon as right on the verge of another major. The likes of Jack Nicklaus, who was a very U.S.-centric player, would travel down to Australia to play that event. Right? Rory has said everyone's got to give up a little bit. They got to concede a little bit. No one gets 100% of what they want. And I thought that was a really telling and really interesting comment, because aren't we in the position that we're in right now at the game's highest tiers because everybody wants 100%? Because everybody wants what they want only for them? I mean, we're hearing from people that are on the inside saying that you've got people that I just read those names, and they're not negotiating for the constituency that they represent. They're negotiating for them. Numero uno, 100%. So when you get a large amount of investment money coming in from SSG, $1.5 billion and upwards to $3 billion, right? How long will that group be patient with the 100% mentality when they invested that money into what is a now for-profit entity in which, no doubt, they fully expect to see their investment grow, not stagnate, and not be meant just to pay out players who feel entitled to that they're entitled to it. So it's really interesting. I also, just as an aside, the idea that and Jimmy was pretty straightforward about it, talking about the players outnumber the independent directors. And I looked at that and said, I don't know how I see that as a bad thing. For one reason is it's clear the players aren't voting as a block. Are the independent directors? I would presume not. I would presume they're making decisions based upon their vast business experience and world experience, and they're making what they feel is the best decision for the balance of all. That's their role. That's their job. The entire conversation about, and there's more and more of it, and there'll be more of it now with this, about this idea that the players and the players having a majority, it's being presented in such a way to almost suggest like this is an issue. And it's been odd to me, because for all our lives, we've been told that the PGA Tour belongs to the players. The PGA Tour belongs to the players. Now, there's this new entity, this for-profit entity, in which players, according to a structure of criteria, were given what they're calling grants, in essence, equity in the new entity. But wait a minute, I thought the players owned the PGA Tour. And if the players owned the PGA Tour, and if that is in some way a governance that rides above this new entity, unclear to me, then why wouldn't they have the majority of representation? And I'm not suggesting this to you because I'm agreeing with one faction or another. I've already given you some comments, hopefully, to balance against a mentality of circling in the wagons instead of opening them up. But having said that, there's no indication that I've seen that the players are of one mindset. So it illustrates a few things. One is that the game at its top tier continues to be defined more by chaos than any sort of definitive direction that they're working on. We're told that they're working on things. There has been some, Rory made some comments that seem to imply that the window of opportunity to get a deal done with PIF may be closing. I'm curious about that. Is that because of offense? Or is that because the PIF side's looking at it going, you guys got to straighten your own house out before you want us to move in with you? And then the whole thing, the Rory stuff, which led to this whole conversation about whether he's playing with a chip, this whole idea of, and it's in this article. This is Rex writes, when asked why he wasn't reinstalled on the board, McIlroy said the vote, quote, got pretty complicated and pretty messy, close quote. And a day later, he was asked if his relationship with Woods had been strained because of the politics of a potential deal with PIF. Rory said, this is where I say he was answering diplomatically, I think we can have disagreements. I think that's fine. We had a really good talk last Friday for 45 minutes, just about a lot of different things. So no, there's no strain there. I think we might see the future of golf a little bit differently, but I don't think that should place any strain on a relationship or on a friendship, close quote. So it's, again, to me, it's about the circling of the wagons. If you feel like the money that came in gave you financial stability to weather the storm, first thing you have to ask yourself is, are you the reason for the storm? Because the money that you brought in, will that keep your top players from going to live if they get offered a lot of money? Unlikely, unless you're willing to match that, which you're not, because you'll run out of that money pretty quickly if you did. So it seems like everyone says that a deal is in the best interest of the game and its long-term health. But I'm not sure that's what they're saying behind the scenes. If you look at the schedule of press conferences today, there's a number of people on that list that can weigh in on this. I haven't heard Max Homa say too much about it, to be honest with you. Maybe I've just missed it. But Justin Thomas, I've heard him say basically, and he's in there, he's in speaking right now as we speak. I've heard him say previously that he thinks, like live players coming back, there should be some kind of penalty or what have you. Tiger is central to this whole thing from everyone we hear. We're told that Jordan Spieth and Patrick Cantlay are part of that Tiger mentality, whatever that is. 12 and 12:30. John Rahm was the poster boy because he was the last huge player that went to live. You got Brooks Koepka, who seems like he's just Brooks Koepka. I'm just here to win, which is refreshing too in its own right. This kind of like blah, blah, blah. I'm here to play golf. Xander's at 4 p.m. Of course, Xander is best friends with Patrick Cantlay. So I do think, and on some level, I hope that we get some revelation in some of these questions today. Not to make it dominated by that, because I do think that Matt's right that this should be about the golf this week. But I do think it's fair to ask questions, because when do we have the opportunity to have all these players coming in succession when questions can actually be asked? Although the part of it that's at the very least concerning is that when the people on the inside say they don't know what's happening, how can we on the outside have any clue what's happening? So